Hey, I'm Alex Newman. I'm the executive director of Public School Exit. I've been passionate about education for years. And part of the reason is that I know the history of public education, which really has been lost. And so I want to run you through in the next 5 minutes through a very condensed version the history of America's so-called public school system so that you understand where it came from and where it's going. Now, before we had a government education system in America, we had a vibrant free market education system led primarily by parents and the church. Parents were mostly responsible for educating their children. Grandparents and uncles and aunts pitched in, and then the church played a very important role as well. They set up a lot of private academies. Poor parents could send their children there at no cost. And so we had a wonderful education system before the government got involved. The one notable exception where government did get involved just a little bit was in Massachusetts, where they passed the Old Deluder Satan Act. This was even before America was a country. It was just the Massachusetts Bay Colony. This was in the 1640s. And they said that Satan wants to deceive people, and one of his chief projects is denying men knowledge of the scriptures. And so they said it's important for everybody to learn how to read. And so if you're a town with more than X number of families, everybody needs to learn how to read there. And if you have to, set up a little school and hire a teacher. But this was run by the parents for the purpose of teaching literacy and the Bible, not to indoctrinate children. The idea that government would control education really was just unheard of. Thomas Jefferson proposed that parents create kind of little schools in Virginia, but that's the closest we really got to it at all. Then along came in the early 1800s a communist by the name of Robert Owen, and he was an actual communist. He set up a communist commune in Indiana called New Harmony, and he came up with the idea that the best way to promote communism and eradicate Christianity was to have government control education. So he set up what was described by a whistleblower who was involved in this, Orsis Brownson, as a secret society modeled on the Carbonari to promote government education, to try to influence public opinion, and also to get men elected to the legislatures who would agree with that idea. And apparently they were very successful. Fast forward to the mid-1800s, you had Horace Mann become the first ever Secretary of Education for a state. It happened in Massachusetts. Right away, the quackery came in. They set up government schools to train the teachers. They set up government schools for the children. They demonized private education. They implied that parents were not capable. Horace Mann really wanted to get the Bible out of the schools, and this is kind of the root of this, right? And it was a disaster. I mean, right away, the quackery that started coming in, the phrenology, the whole word method, it just produced a massive, massive disaster. And actually, Horace Mann got these ideas from Prussia, the idea that the government should run a school system, that the school system should exist to serve the state and train the children up to be good little statists. And the Prussians had actually gotten the idea from Robert Owen. In fact, Robert Owen wrote that the Prussian ambassador had acquired copies of his essays promoting government education, taken them to Prussia, and then encouraged the Prussian dictator to set up this government school system. And that's what Horace Mann modeled Massachusetts system on. Well, Massachusetts then went around the country like a traveling evangelist and promoted this idea of mandatory compulsory government school for everyone. Found a lot of success. Fast forward another 50 years and you get to John Dewey, who's almost universally acknowledged as the architect, the founding father of America's government school system. He, too, was a communist. He went to the Soviet Union and he loved it. He argued that government ought to really use the school system to collectivize the children, to move them away from individuality. And we don't have to speculate about what he believed. He was very open about it. He was one of the co-authors of the Humanist Manifesto, where they said right in the beginning, we believe the universe is eternally self-existing and not created, right? A direct attack on the first words in God's word. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And if you read through the rest of this Humanist Manifesto, we need to get rid of the profit motive. We need to collectivize the means of production. It's basically warmed over communism. And he was very successful, unfortunately, John Dewey, in promoting these ideas. He also wrote an incredible essay called The Primary Education Fetish, where he argued that really we need to stop wasting all this time teaching little kids how to read and write. The real purpose of the education, especially in the younger years, needs to be to turn kids into little collectivists. But he said change must come gradually. To force it unduly would compromise its final success by favoring a violent reaction. And it's all been downhill from there, guys. The school system in America has its roots in communist thinking and collectivist thinking. The purpose was always to move us away from our Christian foundations, from the notion of God-given rights, and to move us toward where we're going now, toward centralized, totalitarian, anti-Christian government. We've got to set our children free. So check out our website, publicschoolexit.com, to learn more. Thanks for watching, and God bless.